What's up? Rayshad Andrews here. We're ringing around the truth. And what I'm about to do while I'm driving on my way home is give you my breakdown of this situation of what's going on in the Ukraine. All right. So, I mean, it's unfortunate that war has broke out like it did. Anytime war breaks out, it's no joke. It's a very serious thing. It's real unfortunate for the civilians, for the innocents out there in Ukraine. All right, but here's what's going down, and here's why me personally, I'm not against Russia on what they've done. All right, because it's like this, right? And you can look this up if you need to. For all those who don't know about this situation, number one, like, well, you know, you can number it how you want to, but I'm just gonna let you know, in order to draw reference to some very important things. The entire time that Trump was in office, you know, the powers that be over the West, and I'm not going to say America, because, you know, the American people didn't really have anything particularly against Russia. I mean, if you did, you did. It is what it is. But the powers that be associated with the World Economic Forum, you know, originating out of the Trilateral Commission and, you know, the New World Order, they've always wanted to get at Russia. You know, like Russia was always on their to-do list. You understand? Like that was on the, they were on the list, you know, and they always just needed something that they could pin to Russia so that they could open the door to make Russia number one enemy, so that then they could initiate something with Russia, like initiate the war with Russia, initiate the fight. You understand? They tried it the whole time Trump was in office. Okay, but they couldn't get nothing going. They couldn't get no fires going from all the sparks that they shot off, right? And even before Trump, back in the day, Hillary, you know, Obama and Biden, they were doing the stuff. They were attempting to initiate something with Trump. Because if you remember back in the day, there was a situation with Syria, right? And there was a standoff in the Atlantic Ocean with the different navies. Because, you know, and basically Russia had let, you know, America know that if they go into Syria, then there's going to be problems. And, you know, there's a little standoff, you know, off the coast of Syria. And you can go back and look that up if you don't recall it. But here's the big thing right here. In 2013, 2014, I was in the Ukraine in 2012 and 2013. I was in Eastern Ukraine and I was in Western Ukraine. In the Eastern Ukraine, I went as far as Lviv. Lviv, that's in Western Ukraine, close to the Polish borders. And I was there. But I was also in Kiev, in Eastern Ukraine, in the capital. That's actually where I got married, to my first wife, who's now my ex-wife. So I was in the Ukraine and I was over there. And a lot of people don't understand how it gets down over there or what even happened. So here's what happened. Okay. In 2013, there was a vote for the Ukraine to either join or not join the European Union. And at that time, the Ukraine was under the power of its president, which was the, you know, officially elected government president of the Ukraine. So the people actually elected this guy, right, who was their president. I forget his name, but, you know, he was elected by the Ukrainian people. Now, the Ukrainian people decided to vote against joining the European Union, right? But the powers that be really wanted them to be in the European Union. But the Ukrainian people felt like it was a bad deal, and that's why they downvoted it, because every other country within the European Union basically was being bankrupted and their jobs were being outsourced, and the Ukrainian people didn't want that. So they voted against joining the European Union, okay? And when they voted against joining the European Union, what happened? Everybody who was paying attention understood that Soros activated his, activated his situation. You know what I'm saying? There was many shell corporations that came out and basically did staged protests. There was Molotov cocktails. There was so much orchestrated civil unrest you know, because they were trying to paint it out to the media, you know, and to the rest of the world that the elected president of the Ukraine, right, kept his people from being able to join in the European Union, and due to that, they rose up and revolted against it, right? This was a bunch of lies, though, because the Ukrainian people did not want to join the European Union, right? So ever since then, right, and what happened was the Soros-backed organizations and the Soros-backed orchestrated mayhem that, you know, took place in the country, you know, it got to such a level to where the elected president of the Ukraine actually stepped down. And basically, once he stepped down, what happened? The West, the New World Order, the powers that be, installed you know, a de facto leader. All right, that's exactly what happened. The powers that be installed a de facto leadership, one that's going to be a regime change. But y'all, you got to remember, you know, under Obama and all that, they did plenty of regime changes. Okay, you know, starting with Bush and all that, they did plenty of regime changes. Called Arab Spring. They went in all these different countries, killed the leader, and took over. So, you know, they were basically putting together the playbook and recipes, you know, for being able to perfect regime change within a country. But in the Ukraine, they did it with an elected official. So they didn't go in and kill the guy. They basically caused so much mayhem that he ended up actually stepping down. And once he stepped down, as I stated, they installed their guy. Now, Putin took note of this the whole time. Because, you know, if you've ever been to the Ukraine, you know that in the eastern part of the Ukraine, people don't really speak Ukrainian. There's a very small amount of people that speak, a small percentage of people, a minority, that speak Ukrainian in the eastern part of the Ukraine. Like, and most of them speak Russian. It's mostly Russian. Russia built that up. Understand that. Please understand it. Like, that's what happened. And so, I mean, I was in the eastern part of the Ukraine. I was in the western. And in the western part of the Ukraine, they speak Ukrainian, but they also speak like a blended dialect of Ukrainian and Polish. You know, I speak Polish, so I can partially understand them. I'm fluent in the language. But in the eastern part of the Ukraine, they speak mostly Russian. And, you know, you can look that up for yourself. And so, basically, America, or, you know, not us Americans, but, you know, America, the powers that be, the West, you know, basically did a regime change in the Ukraine back in 2013, 2014. Okay? And now here we are, 2022. And yeah, it's unfortunate for the Ukrainian people that are caught up in this as collateral. But understand, Putin is just doing to the Ukraine what the West already did. And Putin has to make sure that he has control of that region strategically. And so in order to ensure that he has and maintains control of that region, because the West, you know, they were, you know, putting NATO forces into the Ukraine talking about joining NATO. They got biolabs over there in the Ukraine. Putin can't have all this going on over there like that. You know, it just doesn't make sense for him to just sit back and let all that happen. So basically, they backed Putin into a corner where he had to make a move. And it's like everybody want to be like, oh, condemn Russia, condemn Russia. No. Russia is not our problem. Okay, we're over here in the U.S., right? Russia is not our problem. The West is attempting to provocateur a situation so that they can find an angle at which they can go full send 100% in on Russia. And that's why they had to provocate this situation with, you know, stacking NATO forces up inside the Ukraine. The de facto Ukrainian Zelensky leader trying to act like he's trying to join into NATO. And they provocateured this whole situation into Putin, you know, having to make a move. They forced his hand so that they could get him into a situation. And now they're talking about cyber attack this, cyber attack that. Understand. Please understand, and you can disagree with me if you want, right? But our enemy here in the US of A is not Russian. Our enemy, Like, if you want to talk about who our actual enemy is, our a potential actual threat to us is China. That's the enemy. Oh, and it's the people who want to give you that, these corporations that operate, outside of governance, Pfizer, okay, the Gates, the Faucis. These are our real enemies here in America, and China. China's the main one, besides the ones that are attacking us with this plague. And if you can't get your head wrapped around that, they're gonna put Russia everywhere. But Russia is not the main enemy. Russia is doing what it has to do to protect its people. Putin said he want to denazify Ukraine. Why do you think he wants to denazify Ukraine? Because George Soros, a Nazi, installed their people. The West installed their people. Okay? A lot of y'all don't understand, companies like IBM, founded by a Nazi. Thomas J. Watson was a Nazi. He got an award from Hitler for, how he helped them, through his company IBM and a subsidiary of them that operated in Georgia. I mean, not Georgia, but operated in Germany. A subsidiary of IBM helped with the punch card situation and the tabulators and all that. The way that they mastered tracking Jews, and they installed tabulators in all the transportation hubs and installed tabulators everywhere, so that anywhere that anybody in that country had to go, they had to have their punch card with them, and that punch card would identify exactly who they are. Okay, y'all can look it up. Punch card system. IBM. World War II. Okay? And so IBM, if you look into the history of IBM in the 90s, they basically, the company, the president at that time, I forget his name, but he worked with Bill Gates' mother in order to create Microsoft. You understand? And then from there, the Gates Foundation was in it. So the Gates, if you ask me, in my opinion, are Nazis. They're Nazis. Okay? This is war against Nazis. Okay? And, and communism. It ain't changed, people. And the big thing here is that China is the real threat. China is the main threat. Okay? It ain't Russia. Russia's basically saying, if you mess with us, we gonna do something back to you. Okay, Russia's not provocateuring the situation between us and the U.S. The U.S. is looking for, as I said, an angle so that they can go full send in on Russia, as they've been looking for a long time. They've been looking for it for a long time, and they think they're gonna finally get it. So they're putting the narrative out there to basically, preset the landscape, so that people are already set up in their mind through the narrative to accept going in on Russia, right? Trying to turn Russia into an enemy of the world, when Russia is literally doing what it has to do to protect its people from the encroaching hand that is the powers that be, New World Order, World Economic Forum, whatever, right? They're literally trying to come in on Russia, and Putin's not really having it. People need to understand this. And so really, you're going to see a lot of Ukraine this, Ukraine that, Russia this, Russia that. But I'd focus on China and what's going on, in that east, in that, in that west, west of California, east of the east. Depends on where you stand and which direction you want to look at it in. But, the world's a circle. It's a whole globe, so it's whatever. But, you got to decide, like, are you going to, be someone that acknowledges how the mainstream and how the powers that be manipulate the masses into, acquiescence of their narrative? Or are you going to look outside that and realize that the real threat is what it's always been the whole time, and it hasn't changed, even though this situation has sparked off in Europe, in Eastern Europe? I got a daughter in Poland, in a village called Bircha, right? My daughter's out there. Ex-wife is there too. So it's real. You know, it's real for me. I feel like I might not see her again. But this is a serious situation, and I don't think that anybody should be invested into making Russia the enemy. The real comprehension is understanding and focusing on what China's going to do. Also de-escalating tensions between the U.S. But everything that, the powers that be and Biden and all of them are trying to do is just trying to escalate tensions. You know what I'm saying? Doing stuff that he know ain't going to work, but just going to piss them off and make them more angry at us. It's not a good look. And think about this. For all you people that take it for a joke and that think it's a game, if the United States could barely handle Black Lives Matter and their nonsense, how you think the U.S. is going to handle war on our shores, in our cities? It's not going down. It's not going down like you think. People more interested in looting and thinking about themselves only and coming out on top for themselves individually than thinking about what's best for everybody else. And that's not everybody. I'm not saying that's everybody. But the United States could barely handle what happened or barely even get aligned with what needed to be done about what was happening with Black Lives Matter. And look at them, and look at this situation. And that wasn't even war. That was just a bunch of, people acting out of control, and it couldn't be really handled so well. So if real war breaks out here, understand, it's going to be very serious. A lot of you idiots are going down. That's just how it's, that's the nicest way I can put it. A lot of you fools are going down. A lot of you people that don't take it serious, a lot of you people that think it's a joke, y'all going down. Y'all going to be caught sideways with it, unfortunately. Because, hey, anybody, innocent, unfortunate civilians, hey, it is what it is. But everybody just needs to prepare themselves because, like I said, Russia is not the threat. Russia's just trying to protect its invested interests and trying to make sure that its people are good and that it's not going to be in a position where it can just get ran over. And that makes sense. While everything else is basically being orchestrated to make Russia look like the bad guy. It is unfortunate how the things have gone down in the Ukraine. Hearts out to all those people that are caught up in this, as collateral. But yeah, Russia's not the enemy. Not to America directly. China's the enemy to us. And also the people who propagated this whole, pandemic. They're the enemy. So if y'all want to do some research and focus in the area, focus on that. Bring Around Truth out.